Hi guys, Colleen from Walking the Resonant Path here. I just wanted to talk to you about a book I've just finished reading called The Jane Austen Remedy, and it's by Ruth Wilson. So I'll read you the blurb and then I'll tell you what I thought of it. As she approached the age of 70, Ruth Wilson began to have recurring dreams about losing her voice. Unable to dismiss her feelings of unexplainable sadness, she made the radical decision to retreat from her conventional life with her husband to a sunshine yellow cottage in the Southern Highlands, where she lived alone for the next decade. Ruth had fostered a lifelong love of reading, and from the moment she first encountered Pride and Prejudice in the 1940s, she had looked to Jane Austen's heroines as her models for the sort of woman she wanted to become. As Ruth settled into her cottage, she resolved to reread Austen's 6 novels and rediscover the heroines who had inspired her, to read between the lines of both the novels and her own life. And as she read, she began to reclaim her voice. The Jane Austen Remedy is a beautiful, life-affirming memoir of love, self-acceptance, and the curative power of reading. Published the year Ruth turned 90, it is an inspirational account of the lessons learned from Jane Austen over nearly 80 decades, as well as a timely reminder that it is never too late to seize a second chance. Now, I find it hard to how to review this book because I think there'll be a group of people that like it and a group of people that find it boring. I was kind of in the middle. I got very distracted, found some of it really boring, and I found some of it quite interesting and good. So I was kind of in the middle-ish, but I was more on the side that I got bored and easily distracted a lot. Now, first thing to say is I would not pick up this book if you're not a fan of Jane Austen, because that just wouldn't be a good thing to do, because as it says on the back, that's what it does. It discusses Jane Austen novels. Also, though, it's good if you're widely read. Because the reason for that is because sometimes you'll just mention like something from another book or something from another author or something from somebody who's prominent at the time that you may never have heard of, and you may go, what the heck is she talking about? Luckily for me, I am in the camp that is widely read. So when she's talked about The Age of Innocence, I read it. When she's talked about, the poem The Love Songs of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot, I'd read it. When she mentioned Scheherazade, I knew that was from the 1001 Arabian Nights, and that was a narrator. So it's good, but she didn't say that it was a narrator of the 1001 Nights. And this is what I mean. Sometimes you just offhandedly throw these things in or go, Foucault said this. And people will be thinking who's Foucault, but he was a cultural writer of the time about, especially the Asian culture. So he was a writer about Asian culture and how it sort of came to be sort of seen as the Orient and the other, and how we, saw it as that instead of seeing them like us. So it's very much about that. But I only know that because when I did Asian studies at university, I studied Foucault, and I studied Said. And so, I know about these things. And then when I did English literature and English at university, I studied those things. So if you haven't and you don't know this, when she's just throwing out these names of books and suggestions left, right and centre, and sometimes she would explain herself well, but other times she wouldn't even explain herself. She would just go, about this, or about that book, or about, Prufrock when he said this in the poem, and people would go, what poem? What are you talking about? Who wrote this poem? Because she doesn't explain that. So, for those people, it's going to be a less enjoyable read, even if you've read all of Austen's novels, it's going to be a less enjoyable read. But if you're more widely read, you might enjoy it more. Now, the bits where I got really bored were the bits when she started to go on about grammar. Now, I have been to university and studied as an English teacher, but my God, I didn't really want to read all about grammar. This is supposed to be a book about how Jane Austen talked, and rereading Jane Austen changed her life. And yet sometimes she'd go on about syntax and all this stuff, and I'll be going, oh God, I'm so bored. So that's where my mind drifted off. Also, even in some of the discussions of the Austen novels, I was just like, I'm sorry, I'm not getting much inspiration out of this. And that's the problem I had with it too. It was supposed to be how it inspired her to change her life radically. And I mean, she did change her life at the end. But mostly, there was no big inspiration, no big shifts, no big wow, or wow, that was really inspiring, or wow, look at what it made you do moments, except for at the end where she moved to the cottage in the Scottish Highlands. That was like, well, that's great. And, you know, at one point she did move to Israel, but that was her sort of agreeing with her husband to move to Israel. And she sort of thought about that, but there's no huge, like, inspirational moments which made you go, wow, or which really made you relate to it and go, oh, I can see how that amazingly made you change your life or think completely differently. Even though she did end up thinking differently in some areas, there was no big inspirational things in there, I didn't find. I mean, other people may love it. And especially if you're a lover of literature, if you're a lover of Jane Austen novels, if you're a lover of learning all about grammar and, you know, syntax and conjunctions and the light and shade in novels and stuff. I was more reading it hoping for the inspiration that it said on the blurb in the cover. And so even though I'm in the camp that I would think would like it more, I did get bored and I was looking for that inspiration, which I didn't really find. So as I said, I'm in two minds about who would like it, but I think I was more bored than interested. So I'm going to give it 2.5 cauldrons. So that is the Jane. And by the way, the thing that made me give it a little bit more, you know, because I was going to give it 2 cauldrons at first, but then I realised who Ruth Wilson was, and she got her doctorate at the age of 88 at Sydney University in literature, and she changed the way Jane Austen novels were read in schools and at universities and things in education and learning. Was her doctoral thesis was on Jane Austen and empathy. So, you know, that's who she was. So, you know, you got to give her kudos for getting a doctorate at 88. But, yeah, the book wasn't that fascinating to me. It was okay if you like that sort of thing, but it felt like more of maybe an instructional thing that's good to read if you are an English literature major or something. Well, anyway, that's The Jane Austen Remedy by Ruth Wilson, 2.5 cauldrons. Well, I hope you have a glorious day and do whatever resonates within your soul. Bye now.